Previously,
Well, here we go with day one, trying to get this thing finally built. After almost 3 years, we finally have gotten to a point in the economy where it's actually reasonable to buy lumber again.
after lumber prices finally came down, we were able to get started on a long overdue project, and that is to finally build our equipment barn. This build has taken us quite a while with limited time and resources. There have been a lot of very hot days and long nights, but we are finally rounding the corner on this project. Be sure to follow along with us as we try to make one last push through with this project and move on to something that's a little crazy, but interesting nonetheless.
Well, we just got a massive life upgrade. Now granted, it's an older truck and it's got its issues, but for this, it's gonna make life so much better. No more are we gonna have to run up and down the ladder, being super sketchy, trying to time each other just right with a board that wants to fold in half on us. So I'm really hoping this is gonna make things so much safer and so much faster.
Man, what else? What do you think about those? She's like, I want to fish them. So we've got a Grinch one and an old lady name, and then we'll forget it and never remember it again, and we take their tweets and put them in their new home. All right. Laura.
I don't know if that's really nasty.
Marcella.
Apparently we're on M for this alphabet.
Jordan. Nancy.
As you can see, we have finally gotten all that siding put on, and man, has that taken us way too long. So I'm really happy to be moving on from that. Now the next thing is that we get to finish up the rest of the roof, and then hopefully once we get that done, we can get this thing painted and be done with this project and move on. Now before, whenever we had to put all those purlins up there on the top of the roof, we actually had to assemble scaffolding and then take it back down again with each new section. We have that lift truck now, so that is going to make things move so much faster. Let's get to work.
So now that we've got that garage door in, we are essentially done with the exterior of this building. We've got the roof on. The only other thing that we have to do really is just to paint around the outside, but all that can wait because we're basically weather sealed in here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to start getting electrical put in to this building because there's some other things that we need to do after the electrical, but we've got to get the electrical done first. Now, with that being said, this place is an absolute mess. Since it's been basically a construction zone up until this point, we got to get it cleaned up. And what a great opportunity to actually get all the tools that we have now accumulated through this whole build organized into a new box. So we've got a new 72-inch Homac toolbox. Really excited about that because it is built so much better than my old used Snap-on that I have. But with that, we're trying to get our tools organized. So let me show you some little tricks that I have just found out with this thing that I think are actually kind of cool. So you start out, you get your new box, you get your new tools, and you want to get everything organized. So you place everything in the box. You get it organized at first, but the problem is keeping it organized over time. And that is always a struggle because you lay the wrenches or your tools in the box exactly how you want them, and then every time you open the drawer, you pull it open, the wrenches slide or the tools slide, and then you close it and they slide again, and over time, you end up with this big mess inside the box, and it's super hard to keep them organized. Now, they make commercially these tool organizers that you can buy. In this particular example, this is a wrench organizer, so the idea is that it's magnetic on the bottom. You're supposed to stick it in your box, which the problem is that the magnets are never very strong, and so if you have a mat in your drawer, you put the magnet down and it doesn't stick at all. And so the other thing is that they actually have magnets in the organizer itself, which organizes the individual wrench. So the wrench sticks to the magnetic plate that holds these on, so that's fantastic. The problem though is, again, you put the wrenches on the magnet like this, and then you open the drawer and the whole thing slides every single time you open and close the drawer, and that's gonna drive you crazy. And so I was trying to actually find solutions for that. The other problem is that these organizers are super expensive, which all organization is really expensive, but each one of these things are like 20 bucks. And if you've got a lot of wrenches, I mean, right here on the table, I've got 4 of these things right here. That's 80 bucks just right there. And so here's the solution I actually came up with when I was thinking the other day. So what I did was I went online and I found these little neodymium magnets. Now, I can get a ton of these things for relatively cheap. So in this particular example, I've got a brick of 50 of these things for 50 bucks. And so that is so much cheaper than what I'm getting these organizers for. So all these boxes, they come with a mat, okay? And the problem is that the mat, when you put the tool on the mat, it just slides around every time you open the drawer. Now, again, like I was saying, you can get these organizers, but again, the problem, the organizer slides as well. And so eventually you're gonna have this big mess that you have to deal with. So this is what I thought. If I take one of those magnets and I place it underneath the mat, and then whenever I put the mat back over top of it, I put the wrench on top of the magnet. Now that thing is magnetically held there. And so now I open and close the drawer, the magnet never moves. All right, so once you get all of your wrenches and magnets laid out exactly how you want them without the mat in, you pick them all up. And I'm going to throw my mat back in. All right, there we go. Doesn't matter how hard I slam it, those wrenches go nowhere. And the nice thing is that because the magnet is actually separated from the tool itself, with the mat, it's actually slightly weaker holding on to the tool than it is the actual bottom of the box. So I can just lift up and put them right back where they were without worry about the magnets underneath shifting at all. You just drop it in. Goes right where I go. Oh! I'm in a hurry. Oh, I dropped the wrench. Oh. It holds it. Yeah, it does. If you decide you want to be a freaking animal about it. What about the little ones? Okay, so don't be an idiot. And then if you fix it, you just go and stick it right back where it was. It's good to go. That's enough, dude. Good grief. Prove your point. we've got the rough and electrical done, we're going to go ahead and move on to insulation. In terms of the insulation, we decided to go with rock wool as opposed to fiberglass insulation. From what I've read, rock wool is a bit more pest resistant, rodent resistant, water resistant, and I think that's going to be really necessary in terms of equipment barn where we're just not going to be out here to monitor it every single day. So let's get that done. overkill on our walls. We ended up going with 13/16 board, and yeah, that's a bit more than what really we needed just to cover up the insulation. But we figured that with this being a shop, we're probably gonna be mounting tools and everything else on the wall, and this will essentially give us the ability to do that without having to search out for studs. So we feel like that overkill and that added expense is gonna be really helpful down here for actually storing tools. So as you can see, yesterday we got all of our floors coated. We really wanted to do a thin coat of epoxy on top of these concrete floors just because this is going to be an area where we're actually working on equipment. And in case there's any kind of spills on the floor or anything, that concrete is terrible about absorbing oil and everything else. And then it's a pain in the butt to get it cleaned up. So since we've got this area just cleaned out, we might as well just go ahead and do it right now. And so that's what we did. So that's good to go. So largely that really wraps us up with this project. Thank God, finally. It has been long enough. Unfortunately, it is just hard to get out here and get things done because it's really just me and 1 to 2 other people most of the time, and we all have jobs. So we do what we can, we do it as fast as we can, and now we've finally gotten to the point where we're done. The rest of everything else is really just cosmetic. We'd like to go ahead and paint the outside of this thing. We're kind of thinking of like a dark gray. We think that might go along well with the green roof, and then the doors will end up being brown as well with white trim. If y'all have any ideas in terms of what could look better, just leave a comment below. Also, with our channel, if you could just like and subscribe, that'll help us out. Obviously, it takes us a while to get videos posted, but we're kind of growing, so hopefully we can get that done. Thank you all for watching. The next video is gonna be pretty cool. We are going to upgrade our water system, and our water system is actually gonna run off of rain collection. And that sounds crazy, but I have some theories on it, and I'd really like to walk y'all through it, so make sure you like and subscribe and watch that next video. Thank you, guys.